She was taking his order. Until she read the billionaire's name and realized he was the man who left her 14 years ago, leaving her in tears. The smell of garlic and expensive wine hung thick in the air of the Golden Star, mixing with the soft murmur of conversations and the gentle clink of crystal glasses. Claire Dawson moved between tables like a shadow. Efficient, invisible, forgettable. That's what 14 years of waiting tables taught you. How to disappear in plain sight while carrying trays that cost more than your monthly rent. Her feet ached in the cheap black flats she'd bought at Target 3 years ago. The soles were worn thin. But new shoes weren't in the budget. Not when Lily needed new textbooks for sophomore year. Not when the electricity bill came in $40 higher than expected. Not when life was a constant calculation of what you could survive without. Claire, you're on VIP tonight. Marcus, the floor manager said as she passed the server station. He handed her a small cream-colored card with elegant black lettering. Table 7. High roller, don't screw it up. She took the card without looking at it. Nodding mechanically, VIP tables meant bigger tips if you played it right. Smiled at the right moments, laughed at terrible jokes, pretended their stories about yacht clubs and European vacations were fascinating instead of reminders of everything you'd never have. Claire tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and glanced down at the reservation card. The world tilted. Michael Reeves, 8 Nord p.m., party of 2. The card slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the polished marble floor. She stared at it lying there, those 2 words burning into her retinas like they were on fire. Michael Reeves, Michael Reeves, Michael Reeves. You okay? Marcus asked, irritation creeping into his voice. She bent down, picked up the card with trembling fingers. Yeah, sorry. Just dropped it. But she wasn't okay. She was drowning. 14 years of carefully constructed walls collapsing in the span of 3 seconds. Because that name was supposed to be chiseled into granite in Forest Lawn Cemetery. That name belonged to a closed casket at a funeral she'd attended 7 months pregnant. Crying so hard she'd thrown up in the parking lot afterward. That name was dead. Claire, hello. Marcus snapped his fingers in front of her face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Can you handle VIP or not? Yes, she wanted to say. I have seen a ghost. I can handle it, she heard herself say, voice flat and distant. She had 2 hours before the reservation. 2 hours to pull herself together, to convince herself it was a coincidence. Someone else with the same name. A cruel trick of fate. Nothing more. Los Angeles had millions of people. Common names happened, but Michael Reeves wasn't that common. And at 8 p.m., when the hostess led a couple to table 7, Claire knew with absolute certainty that coincidences were just another luxury she couldn't afford. He looked older. 14 years would do that. His dark hair had silver threading through the temples now, and there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there when he was 26. But it was him. Same strong jaw, same confident posture, same easy smile he'd used to make her believe in fairy tales and happy endings. He wore a suit that probably cost $3,000. His watch caught the light. Rolex, maybe Patek Philippe. The woman with him was elegant and polished, her blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Her red dress, the kind that required a personal tailor. Isabella. It had to be. Claire's hand gripped her order pad so hard, the pen left an indent in her palm. She stood frozen behind a marble column, watching them settle into their seats, watching him laugh at something the woman said, watching him live and breathe and exist when he was supposed to be bones and dust. Table 7 needs water, Marcus hissed, appearing at her elbow. What are you doing standing here? Move. Her legs carried her forward on autopilot. She'd done this 1,000 times. Approached a table, smiled, introduced herself. She could do it in her sleep. She had done it in her sleep. Those early years when she worked 3 jobs and caught naps between shifts wherever she could. Good evening. My name is Claire, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I start you off with some water? Her voice didn't shake. That surprised her. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the shock and the rising tide of rage, years of survival instinct kicked in. Don't make a scene. Don't lose this job. Lily needs to eat next week. Michael glanced up at her briefly, half a second of eye contact, then looked back at his menu. No recognition, no pause, No flash of guilt or fear or anything remotely human. She was invisible to him. Just another server. Another nobody. "Still water for me," Isabella said without looking up. "San Pellegrino for him." "Of course," Claire said. "I'll be right back with those." She turned and walked away, each step measured and controlled, even though her heart was trying to beat its way out of her chest. Behind the bar, she braced her hands on the counter and forced herself to breathe. In, out, in, out. He didn't recognize her. 14 years, 60 pounds of stress weight gained and lost, hair a different color, lines on her face from too many sleepless nights. She'd been 22 and soft and naive the last time he'd looked at her with anything resembling attention. Now she was 36 and hard and invisible. The bartender, Jamie, raised an eyebrow. "You good? You look like you're gonna pass out." "I'm fine." Claire grabbed 2 bottles, one still, one sparkling, and headed back to table 7 for the next hour and a half. She served them, brought them appetizers, entrees, wine, listened to Michael tell stories about his tech company, about the 8-figure deal he'd just closed, about the house in Beverly Hills and the vacation home in Cabo. Isabella laughed and touched his arm and called him darling, in that way only women who'd never struggled a day in their lives could manage. Claire smiled, nodded, poured wine, cleared plates, and with every passing minute, something crystallized inside her, something cold and sharp and utterly focused. He was alive, while she'd worked herself to exhaustion, while she'd skipped meals so Lily could eat, while she'd taken the bus for 2 hours each way because she couldn't afford a car, while she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering how she'd failed so completely at life. He'd been alive, rich, happy, free, when they finally paid, leaving a 15% tip that felt like an insult added to 14 years of injury, and walked out of the Golden Star. Claire stood in the shadows and watched them go, watched him put his hand on the small of Isabella's back, watched them climb into a black Mercedes that cost more than Claire would earn in 5 years. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and typed the name into Google. Michael Reeves, CEO, Tech Vision Innovations. His face filled the screen. Forbes articles, interview in Business Insider, photos from charity galas. He'd built an empire, and she'd built nothing but survival, one brutal day at a time. Claire stood there in her worn-out shoes, holding her phone, staring at the life Michael Reeves had stolen, and felt something shift deep in her core. For 14 years, she'd been the victim, the abandoned pregnant girlfriend, the struggling single mother, the woman life had defeated. But as she stared at his smiling face on that screen, she made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't defeated, she was done being invisible, and Michael Reeves was about to learn that some ghosts don't stay buried. Claire's apartment was quiet when she got home at midnight, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, pressing down on your shoulders like a physical weight. She closed the door carefully. The hinges squeaked if you weren't gentle, and Lily was a light sleeper. The 1-bedroom apartment in Echo Park wasn't much. Peeling paint in the bathroom, a kitchen so small you could barely turn around, windows that rattled when trucks passed on the street below. But it was theirs. $750 a month, which was a miracle in Los Angeles, even if the miracle came with cockroaches and a landlord who ignored maintenance requests. Claire kicked off her shoes and felt immediate relief as her feet touched the cool linoleum. She'd been standing for 9 hours straight. Tomorrow she'd do it again, and the day after that, and the day after that, until her body gave out or something changed. Tonight, something had changed. She moved through the dark living room, really just an extension of the kitchen, separated by a worn couch she'd bought at Goodwill 6 years ago, and checked on Lily. Her daughter was asleep in the bedroom they shared, curled up under a quilt Claire's grandmother had made before she died. Lily's homework was spread across the desk in the corner, illuminated by the streetlight filtering through the thin curtains. 14 years old, and already more responsible than most adults Claire knew. Lily did her homework without being asked, made her own lunches, took the bus to school, came home and locked the door and stayed inside until Claire got back. She never complained, never asked why they couldn't afford the things her classmates had, never made her mother feel worse than she already did. Claire stood in the doorway and felt her throat tighten. Everything she'd endured, every double shift, every skipped meal, every moment of crushing exhaustion, had been for the girl sleeping peacefully in that narrow bed, and Michael had called her a problem to be managed. The rage that had been simmering all night flared white-hot. Claire backed out of the room, pulled the door shut, and walked to the kitchen. Her hands shook as she filled a glass with water from the tap. She drank it down, refilled it, drank again. Breathe, think, don't fall apart. But she wanted to fall apart. She wanted to scream, wanted to drive to Beverly Hills and throw a brick through Michael's window, wanted to walk into his office and tell everyone there who he really was. A liar, a thief, a man who'd faked his own death to escape responsibility, except no one would believe her. Who was she? A waitress, a nobody, a woman who barely scraped by month to month. Michael Reeves was a CEO, a success story, a man who gave to charity and smiled in magazine photos. If she accused him, he'd bury her. He had money for lawyers, for PR firms, for whatever it took to make problems disappear, just like he'd made her disappear 14 years ago. Claire set the glass down and stared at her reflection in the dark window above the sink. 36 years old, and she looked 45. Lines around her eyes, gray streaks in her dark hair that she couldn't afford to cover, hands that were rough and calloused from years of hard work. She'd been pretty once. Soft, hopeful. Michael had called her beautiful, had traced his fingers along her jaw and promised her everything, and she'd believed him. God, I was so stupid. The memory came flooding back. Not the sanitized version she usually allowed herself, but the raw, ugly truth of it. She'd been 22, working as an assistant at Langford Financial. Michael was her supervisor, 26 and charming, and so far out of her league it had felt like a dream when he'd asked her to dinner. 6 months later, she was pregnant, terrified, but excited too, because Michael had held her and said all the right things. We'll figure it out together. I love you. We'll be a family. 2 months after that, his car went off a cliff on Pacific Coast Highway. The police said he'd been driving too fast, lost control on a curve. The car burned. The body inside was burned too, identified by his wallet, his watch, dental records that Claire later learned had been falsified. She'd gone to the funeral 7 months pregnant, her conservative Catholic parents standing stiff and disapproving beside her. They'd made it clear what they thought. She'd gotten herself into this mess by sleeping with her boss, and now she'd have to deal with the consequences alone. 1 week after the funeral, they'd told her to leave, told her she was a disgrace, gave her $500 and said don't come back. She'd never seen them again, for years. Claire had believed the story. Michael was dead. It was tragic. She'd loved him and he'd died, and that was just how life went sometimes. Cruel and random and unfair. But he hadn't died. He'd left. He'd chosen to abandon her. Chosen to let her believe he was dead. Chosen to let her struggle and suffer while he built a new life with someone else's money. The worst part, the part that made her want to vomit, was how calculated it had been. He hadn't just left. He'd planned it. The fake death, the timing, everything designed to ensure she'd never come looking for him. Because who looks for a dead man? Claire's phone sat on the counter. She picked it up and opened Google again, typed in Michael's name, scrolled through the results. Company website, LinkedIn profile, photos from tech conferences, a puff piece in Los Angeles magazine about his rise from humble beginnings to tech CEO. Humble beginnings. The lie was so brazen it almost made her laugh. She kept scrolling and found what she was looking for. An article from 3 years ago about Michael's wedding to Isabella Langford. Langford. Claire's stomach dropped. She clicked the article, read it quickly. Isabella Langford, ex-wife of Maurice Langford, founder of Langford Financial, divorced 2 years prior after 20-year marriage. Married Michael Reeves in intimate ceremony in Malibu. Maurice Langford, Michael's old boss, the man whose company Michael had worked for when he'd been dating Claire. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Michael hadn't just faked his death on a whim. He'd been having an affair with his boss's wife, and when Claire got pregnant, an inconvenient complication, he'd found a way to eliminate all his problems at once. Disappear, take the money, start over with Isabella, leave Claire with nothing. Claire set the phone down and gripped the edge of the counter. Her breathing came fast and shallow. 14 years. He'd been living his perfect life for 14 years while she'd been surviving, barely, working 3 jobs that first year after Lily was born, waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, doing data entry from home whenever Lily napped, sleeping 4 hours a night, eating ramen and whatever was cheapest at the dollar store, wearing clothes from donation bins, taking the bus because she couldn't afford a car, couldn't afford insurance, couldn't afford anything except the bare minimum to keep herself and her baby alive. And Michael had been in Beverly Hills, drinking expensive wine and building his empire. Something cold settled in Claire's chest, not the hot rage from earlier, but something sharper, cleaner, more focused. She'd spent 14 years surviving. Maybe it was time to do more than that. Maybe it was time to fight back. But how? She was one woman with no resources, no connections, no proof of anything. Michael was untouchable. A man like that didn't fall because a waitress pointed a finger at him. Unless... Claire pulled out her phone again and searched for Maurice Langford. If Michael had stolen Isabella from him, had Michael stolen more than that? The search results painted a picture. Maurice Langford's financial firm had collapsed 8 years ago amid accusations of embezzlement. Maurice had claimed he was framed, that someone had stolen from the company and made it look like him, but he'd never proven it. Lost everything. His reputation, his business, his fortune. Claire leaned against the counter, thinking. Michael had worked at Langford Financial, had access to everything, and then he'd died, right around the same time Maurice's company started having problems. It wasn't proof, but it was a pattern, and if Maurice Langford had been destroyed by Michael too, then maybe, just maybe, he'd want to help destroy him back. Claire glanced at the clock. 12:47 a.m., too late to do anything tonight. She had to be at work at 6 tomorrow morning for the breakfast shift at the diner across town. 4 hours of sleep if she was lucky. But she wasn't going to sleep anyway. She opened a new browser tab and started searching. For Maurice Langford's address, for information about the embezzlement case, for anything that might help her understand what Michael had done and how to prove it. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of her ancient laptop and the occasional car passing outside. In the bedroom, Lily slept peacefully, dreaming whatever 14-year-olds dreamed about. And in the kitchen, Claire Dawson stopped being a victim and became something else entirely. Someone who wouldn't stop until Michael Reeves paid for every single thing he'd taken from her. Maurice Langford lived in Koreatown, in a building that had probably been nice in 1975. Now the exterior walls were stained with smog. The security gate hung crooked on broken hinges, and the elevator had an out-of-order sign that looked permanent. Claire climbed 5 flights of stairs, her breathing heavy by the 3rd floor. She'd taken 2 buses to get here, losing an hour of sleep she couldn't afford. But this couldn't wait. Every day, Michael walked free, felt like another wound. Apartment 512. She stood outside the door for a full minute, rehearsing what she'd say. Hi, you don't know me, but I think the man who destroyed your life is alive and I want to help you destroy him back. Yeah, that would go over well. She knocked before she could talk herself out of it. Silence, then footsteps. Slow, shuffling. The door opened as far as the chain lock allowed, and a man's face appeared in the gap. Bloodshot eyes, gray stubble, the sour smell of whiskey drifting through the crack. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying, he said, already pushing the door closed. Michael Reeves is alive, Claire said quickly. The door stopped, opened wider. Maurice Langford stared at her like she'd just spoken in tongues. What did you say? Michael Reeves, the man who worked for you 14 years ago, the one who supposedly died in a car accident. He's alive. Maurice's face cycled through expressions. Confusion, disbelief, something that might have been hope. Then his features hardened. This some kind of sick joke. Who put you up to this? Nobody. I'm Claire Dawson. Michael was... She swallowed. We were together. I was pregnant when he died. Except he didn't die. Maurice studied her through the gap, his jaw working. Finally, he closed the door. Claire heard the chain slide free. When it opened again, he stepped aside. You better not be wasting my time. The apartment was small and cluttered. Newspapers stacked on every surface. Empty takeout containers. The furniture looked like it had been expensive once. Leather couch, mahogany coffee table. But everything was worn now. Mismatched, like pieces salvaged from a bigger life. Maurice cleared space on the couch with one hand, pushing aside a stack of financial documents. He was probably 60, but looked older, the kind of aging that came from stress and disappointment. Not years. Talk, he said, settling into an armchair that had stuffing coming out of one arm. Claire pulled out her phone, showed him the photos she'd taken at the restaurant. Michael in his $3,000 suit, Isabella with her perfect hair and designer dress. Maurice's hands shook as he took the phone. He zoomed in on Michael's face, and something broke in his expression. Jesus Christ, it's really him. You knew him, Claire said. It wasn't a question. He was my financial manager, brilliant with numbers, charming. Everyone loved him. I trusted him completely. Maurice laughed, a bitter sound. That was my first mistake. He handed the phone back and stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the sounds of Koreatown filtered up. Traffic, voices, the city grinding forward like it always did. $8 million, Maurice said quietly. That's what disappeared from my company. The auditors found it first. Money moving through accounts I didn't recognize. Transfers I never authorized. By the time I realized what was happening, it was gone. And all the evidence pointed to me. But it was Michael. Of course it was Michael, but I couldn't prove it. He was dead, burned up in a car crash 3 months before anyone discovered the missing money. How do you accuse a dead man? Maurice turned to face her. I lost everything. The company, my reputation, my marriage. Isabella left me, took half of what I had left. I've spent 8 years trying to convince anyone who'd listen that I was framed, but nobody believes me. Just a failed businessman making excuses. Isabella married Michael 3 years ago, Claire said. Maurice's face went pale. What? They got married? There was an article in the society pages. They had the wedding in Malibu. For a moment, Maurice just stood there, processing. Then he sat down hard in the armchair, like his legs had given out. They were together, before. They were together, and he looked up at Claire. She helped him. Of course she did. That's why the divorce was so fast. Why she fought so hard for the settlement. She knew he had the money. They planned it together, Claire said. The whole thing? Maurice rubbed his face with both hands. When he looked up again, there were tears in his eyes. I loved her, 20 years. I gave her everything, and she... His voice cracked. Claire understood that pain. Different circumstances, but the same wound. Betrayal by someone you'd trusted completely. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. They sat in silence for a moment. The apartment felt smaller, stuffed with broken dreams and wasted years. Why'd you come here? Maurice asked finally. What do you want from me? I want to destroy them, Claire said simply. Both of them. I want Michael in prison. I want everyone to know what they did, but I can't do it alone. I'm nobody. I have no money, no connections, no proof of anything. But you have knowledge. You know how corporate fraud works. You know what to look for. I'm nobody now too, Maurice said, in case you hadn't noticed. But you were somebody once, and you want this as much as I do. Maurice studied her. You have any idea how hard this will be? How much they'll fight? Michael's rich now. He has lawyers, connections, and if we fail, we're exactly where we are now. You're broke and bitter in Koreatown. I'm working 3 jobs and barely surviving. We've already lost everything. What's left to be afraid of? A slow smile spread across Maurice's face. It transformed him, made him look younger, more dangerous. You've got steel in you. I like that. I've got 14 years of rage in me, and a daughter who deserves to know her father's a piece of shit. Not a tragic hero. Maurice stood and walked to a filing cabinet in the corner. He pulled out a drawer stuffed with folders and papers. I never stopped investigating. Everyone thought I was crazy, obsessing over the past. But I kept digging, trying to find something. Anything that would prove I was right. He pulled out a thick folder and brought it to the coffee table, spreading documents across the surface. Bank statements, corporate filings, timelines written in cramped handwriting. I couldn't figure out where the money went after it left my accounts. The trail disappeared. But if Michael's alive, if he's been living off it all these years... Maurice's eyes lit up with something Claire hadn't seen before. Hope. We can trace it. Follow the money backwards. Find out how he laundered it, where it went. how he built his company. How long will that take? Months, maybe a year. We'll need access to things I don't have anymore. We'll need help from people who won't want to help us. It'll be difficult and dangerous, and it might not work. But it might, Claire said. It might. Maurice gathered the papers back into the folder. I've got nothing but time. Lost my consulting work 2 years ago. Nobody wants to hire the guy who embezzled from his own company. But you have a kid, a life. This could put you at risk. I've been at risk since I was 22, and stupid enough to fall in love with a liar. At least this way I'm fighting back. Maurice held out his hand. Partners. Claire shook it. His grip was firm, and for the first time since seeing Michael's name on that reservation card, she felt something besides fear and rage. She felt purpose. Partners, she agreed, but I need to be clear about something. When this is over, when we prove what they did, I don't want money. I want them in prison. I want Michael to lose everything the way I did, the way you did. Trust me, Maurice said, and his smile was sharp as broken glass. That's exactly what I want too. They spent the next hour going through his files. Maurice explained the basics of the embezzlement, showed her the timelines, the patterns he'd found. Claire's head spun with numbers and corporate entities and offshore accounts, but she forced herself to focus, to understand. This was war, and she'd never win a war she didn't understand. When she finally left, promising to return after her shift tomorrow, the sun was coming up over Koreatown. The city looked different in the early morning light, softer, full of possibility instead of just exhaustion. Claire had 4 hours before work. She'd go home, check on Lily, maybe grab an hour of sleep. But first, she pulled out her phone and took one more look at Michael's smiling face on his company website. Enjoy it while it lasts, she whispered to the screen, because I'm coming for you. And this time, you won't see me coming. She put the phone away and headed for the bus stop, feeling lighter than she had in 14 years. The fight had begun. 3 months passed like water through cupped hands, fast and impossible to hold on to. Claire fell into a rhythm: work, investigate, sleep 4 hours, repeat, the Golden Star during evenings, a diner for breakfast shifts, and cleaning offices on weekends. Between it all, stolen hours with Maurice, poring over documents and building their case piece by piece. They'd found patterns: money moving through shell corporations, accounts in the Caymans, investment firms that existed only on paper. Michael had been careful, but not perfect. 14 years ago. He'd been younger, less experienced. He'd left breadcrumbs. Following them was exhausting. Claire got home after midnight on a Tuesday, later than usual. Maurice had found a connection between one of Michael's current holding companies and an account that received funds right after the original theft. It wasn't proof yet, but it was close. They'd talked for hours, mapping it out, and she'd missed the last bus, had to wait 40 minutes for the next one. She opened the apartment door as quietly as possible. The lights were on. Lily sat on the couch, still dressed, homework untouched on the coffee table. Her arms were crossed, and her expression, God, her expression made Claire's stomach drop. Hey, sweetie, you should be asleep. Where were you? Lily's voice was flat, controlled, the way it got when she was really angry. Work ran late, you know how it is. No, Lily stood up. You weren't at work. I called the Golden Star. Marcus said you left at 9. Claire's mind raced. She'd gotten sloppy, stayed too long at Maurice's. I had to run an errand. Stop lying to me. The words hit like a slap. Lily never yelled. Never. Lily, you've been lying for months, coming home late, sneaking out after I'm asleep. I hear you, Mom. I hear you leaving at 2 in the morning, and you come back smelling like cigarettes even though you don't smoke. So I know you've been somewhere around people who do. Maurice smoked. Old habit he'd never kicked. And I found these. Lily grabbed a stack of papers from the couch. Photocopies of corporate documents. Notes in Maurice's handwriting. Printouts about Michael. In your room, hidden under the mattress like I'm stupid and wouldn't look. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. Lily, I can explain. Then explain. Explain why you have all this stuff about some guy named Michael Reeves. Explain why there are documents about embezzlement and fraud. Explain why... Lily's voice cracked. Explain why his name is the same as my dad's name." The apartment went silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and traffic sounds from outside. Claire stood frozen. 14 years of protection, of carefully constructed lies designed to spare Lily pain, collapsing in a single moment. "Mom?" Lily's voice was small now, scared. "Please tell me it's a coincidence. Please tell me it's not." "It's not a coincidence," Claire said quietly. Lily stared at her. "What?" "It's him, Michael Reeves, your father. My father's dead. He died before I was born. You told me." "I know what I told you. I was wrong." "You were wrong." Lily's voice climbed. "You were wrong. How do you be wrong about someone being dead?" "Because I believed it too. The police told me there was a body, a funeral. I thought he was gone, but he's not. No, he's alive. My dad is alive." Lily's hand shook. "And you've known for 3 months and didn't tell me. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me from what?" "From knowing I have a father. From..." Lily grabbed one of the documents. "From knowing he's some rich CEO who apparently stole millions of dollars." "Lily, please. Does he know about me?" The question stopped Claire cold. "Does he?" Lily demanded. "Does my father know I exist?" Claire wanted to lie. God. She wanted to spare her daughter this pain, but she'd already lied too much. "Yes, he knew I was pregnant when he disappeared." Something crumpled in Lily's expression. "He knew, and he left anyway." "Yes. He chose to leave, to let us think he was dead, to let you raise me alone while he..." Lily looked at the papers again. "While he stole money and got rich." "Yes." Lily sat down hard, like her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Claire moved to sit beside her, but Lily flinched away. "Don't." "Lily, how could you not tell me? How could you let me spend my whole life thinking my dad was some tragic hero who died young when he's actually..." Her voice broke. "When he's actually a criminal who abandoned us. Because I didn't want you to carry that. I didn't want you to grow up knowing you were unwanted. I am unwanted. He knew about me, and he left. That's what unwanted means." Tears streamed down Lily's face. "Did you think lying would change that? Did you think it would hurt less?" "I thought it would hurt less than this." "Well, you were wrong. Again." The word landed like a punch. Claire reached for her daughter, but Lily stood up, backing away. "I need to think. I can't talk to you right now." "Lily, please." "No." Lily grabbed her backpack. "I'm staying at Jessica's tonight. It's almost 1 a.m. "Then I guess you should have thought about that before lying to me for 3 months. Or 14 years. Or my entire life. You can't just leave." "Watch me." Lily headed for the door. Claire followed, desperate. "Lily, stop. Let me explain everything. Let me tell you why I'm doing this." Lily turned, hand on the doorknob. "Why are you doing this?" "Mom, what's with all the research? The late nights? What are you planning?" Claire hesitated. This was the moment. She could tell Lily everything. About Maurice, about the investigation, about the plan to bring Michael down. Or she could protect her, keep her separate from the ugliness. "I'm going to make him pay," Claire said finally, "for what he did to us, to other people. I'm going to expose him and make sure he ends up in prison where he belongs." "You're going after him?" "Yes. You're trying to destroy my father." The word, father, felt wrong. Michael was DNA and nothing else. But to Lily, it meant something different. "I'm trying to get justice." "No." Lily's eyes were hard. "You're trying to get revenge, and you didn't even tell me. You were just going to do it and what? Tell me after." "Surprise. Your dad's in prison. I was trying to protect you from all of this. Stop saying that. Stop protecting me. I'm 14, not 5, and this is my life too. He's my father. I have a right to know. I have a right to decide." "Decide what?" Lily's jaw set. "Maybe I want to meet him." Claire felt like she'd been punched. "What? You heard me? Maybe I want to know who my father is. Maybe I deserve that." "Lily, you don't understand what kind of man he is, because you won't tell me. All I know is what you say, and you've been lying to me. So how do I know what's true? How do I know he's really this terrible person and you're not just..." She stopped. "Just what?" "Just bitter." just angry because he left you." The words hung in the air between them, sharp and cutting. "You think I'd lie about this?" Claire's voice shook. "You think I'd make up what he did? I don't know what to think anymore." Lily yanked the door open. "I don't know what's true." "Lily," but she was gone, footsteps echoing in the stairwell, leaving Claire standing in the doorway of their empty apartment. Claire stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. Then she walked back inside, closed the door, and sank onto the couch. The papers Lily had found were scattered across the coffee table. Months of work, months of secrets, all to protect her daughter, and now her daughter hated her. Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Jessica's mom. "Lily's here. She's upset but safe. She can stay tonight. We'll talk tomorrow." At least she was safe. Claire buried her face in her hands. She'd known this moment would come eventually, had known she couldn't hide the truth forever, but she'd hoped. God, she'd hoped she could wait until it was over, until Michael was behind bars and Lily could see the justice of it. Instead, Lily saw a mother who lied, a father who was alive but hadn't wanted her, and a choice she was too young to have to make. Claire's phone buzzed again. Maurice this time, found another connection. Big one. "Can you meet tomorrow?" She stared at the message. The investigation was progressing. They were close to something real, something that could bring Michael down. But at what cost? Claire looked at the empty bedroom, at Lily's homework still spread across the desk, and wondered if winning this war meant losing her daughter. She texted Maurice back, "Tomorrow, after my morning shift." Then she sat in the quiet apartment and waited for dawn, because sleep was impossible anyway. Outside, Los Angeles hummed with life. Millions of people with their own problems, their own battles. But inside apartment 3B, Claire Dawson faced the hardest truth yet. Sometimes doing the right thing felt an awful lot like doing the wrong one. 6 months into the investigation, Claire felt like she was drowning in paper, bank statements, corporate filings, transfer records. Maurice's apartment had become a war room, every surface covered with evidence that led nowhere and everywhere at once. "We're missing something," Maurice said, lighting his 4th cigarette of the hour. "It's here, I can feel it. But we're not seeing it." Claire rubbed her eyes. She'd worked a double shift, breakfast at the diner, dinner at the Golden Star, and had maybe 3 hours of sleep the night before. The numbers on the page blurred together. Things with Lily had improved. Barely. Her daughter had come home after 2 days at Jessica's, and they'd had a long, painful conversation. Claire had told her everything, the whole story, from beginning to end. Lily had listened in silence, and when Claire finished, she'd said, "I need time." That was 4 months ago. They lived together like polite strangers now. Lily did her homework. Claire worked her shifts, and they orbited each other carefully, neither willing to push too hard. It was better than nothing, but it hurt like hell. "Claire, you still with me?" She looked up. Maurice was staring at her, concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "Yeah, sorry. What were you saying?" "I said we need inside help. Someone who works for Michael now. Someone who can access his current financial records. We've been through this. We don't know anyone. Actually, we might." Maurice stubbed out his cigarette and pulled up a LinkedIn profile on his laptop. "Thomas Wu, senior accountant at TechVision. He's been with Michael for 3 years. So I know his sister. We worked together years ago. And I heard through the grapevine that Michael humiliated Thomas at the last board meeting, called him incompetent in front of everyone, threatened to fire him." Claire leaned forward. "You think he'd help us?" "I think angry people make reckless choices. And Thomas Wu is angry. It took 2 weeks to arrange the meeting. Thomas didn't trust easily. Maurice's connection through his sister helped, but barely. They met at a coffee shop in Pasadena, far from Michael's usual haunts. Thomas Wu was 32, thin, with the exhausted look of someone who worked 80-hour weeks. He ordered black coffee and didn't touch it, just wrapped his hands around the cup like he needed the warmth. "I shouldn't be here," he said immediately. "But you are," Maurice replied. "Which means part of you wants to be." Thomas glanced around the coffee shop nervously. "If Michael finds out, he won't. Not from us. You don't understand. He's paranoid. He monitors everything, emails, phone calls. I'm pretty sure he has someone following me." Claire and Maurice exchanged glances. Why would he do that? Claire asked. Thomas laughed bitterly. Because he's guilty. Of what? I don't know exactly. But I've seen things. Transfers that don't make sense. Accounts that exist off the books. He's hiding something big. What kind of transfers? Maurice pulled out a notebook. I shouldn't. Thomas ran a hand through his hair. Jesus. If I do this, my career is over. If you don't, you'll spend the rest of your life working for a man who treats you like garbage, Claire said quietly. Is that really better? Thomas looked at her. You're the one with the kid, right? The one he stopped. Abandoned while I was pregnant, yes. God. Thomas stared into his coffee. He talks about you sometimes. Not by name, just mistakes from the past. Like you're something he stepped in. Like his daughter is... He stopped again. A problem to be managed, Claire finished. I know. I saw the emails. Thomas's head snapped up. You have emails? From 14 years ago when he was planning to disappear. Can I see them? Maurice slid a folder across the table. Thomas opened it, scanned the pages, and his expression changed. Shock, recognition, understanding. Jesus Christ, this is the Langford theft. This is how he did it. You knew about that. Maurice leaned forward. Everyone in finance knows about Langford Financial. It's taught in business ethics classes as what not to do. But the story is that Maurice Langford embezzled from his own company. Thomas looked at Maurice. That was you. That was me. Except I didn't embezzle anything. Michael did. Thomas flipped through more pages. And Isabella Langford. She's his wife now. She was married to you. She helped him steal from me, divorce me, and take everything I had. Then married him with my money. That's... Thomas shook his head. That's insane and completely plausible. I've seen what they're capable of. What do you mean? Claire asked. Thomas closed the folder, looked around again, lowered his voice. Michael's doing it again. Not embezzlement exactly. He owns the company, but he's moving money into offshore accounts. Lots of money. Investor money. He's been pitching this big expansion. Got people to dump millions into Tech Vision, but the expansion isn't happening. The money's just disappearing. Maurice grabbed his notebook, started writing. How much? 8 million so far, maybe more. I only see pieces of it. He's careful to keep me out of the main transactions. But I've noticed patterns. Money comes in, gets moved through subsidiaries, ends up in accounts I can't access. 8 million, Claire whispered. Same amount as before. It's his magic number, Maurice muttered. Greedy bastard. When did this start? Claire asked. 6 months ago, right after he started talking about expanding to Asia, he's been schmoozing investors, promising huge returns. There's even a gala planned for next month, big charity event, coincidentally where he's supposed to announce the expansion details. Coincidentally, Maurice repeated, or conveniently, announce the expansion, take the money, disappear, again. You think he's planning to run? Thomas looked alarmed. I think Michael Reeves doesn't stick around when things get complicated, and if he's moving money offshore again, he's setting up his exit strategy, Claire finished. Thomas sat back. If that's true, if he runs, all the investors lose everything, including some really powerful people, politicians, tech executives, people who trusted him, people who will destroy him if they find out he's stealing from them, Maurice said. Can you help us? Claire asked. Can you get us proof of what he's doing? Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Then, if I do this, I need guarantees, protection, a job after because I'll never work in finance again. We can't guarantee anything, Claire said honestly. We're barely keeping our heads above water ourselves. But if we bring him down, there'll be legal protection for whistleblowers, and Maurice has contacts who might hire you. Might, Claire confirmed. That's all we can offer. That, and the satisfaction of stopping him before he ruins more lives. Thomas drummed his fingers on the table. My sister's getting married next year. She asked me to walk her down the aisle since our dad died. I can't do that from whatever hole I'd have to hide in if Michael finds out I helped you. Then help us quietly, Maurice said. Copy documents, send us files anonymously. We'll do the rest. If I get caught, don't get caught, Thomas laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. Right. Don't get caught. Simple. But he didn't say no. They talked for another hour, working out logistics. Thomas would copy financial records when he could do it safely. He'd send them through encrypted email to an account Maurice set up. They'd meet only when necessary, always in public places far from Michael's territory. When Thomas finally left, Claire watched him walk to his car, shoulders hunched like he was expecting someone to jump out and arrest him. "Think he'll actually help?" she asked Maurice. "Yeah, he's angry enough and scared enough. That's a powerful combination. You sound like you're speaking from experience." "I am." Maurice closed his notebook. "I spent 8 years being angry and scared. Now I'm just angry, and that's even more powerful." 2 weeks later, the first batch of files arrived. Financial records showing transfers from TechVision to shell corporations. Account numbers, dates, amounts. Claire and Maurice spent days going through them, cross-referencing with the old Langford theft, building connections. The pattern was clear. Michael was doing exactly what he'd done before, stealing methodically, covering his tracks with corporate complexity, but he'd gotten arrogant. The money trail was clearer this time, easier to follow. "We're close," Maurice said one night, surrounded by papers. "Another few months of records and we'll have enough to take to the police. Or the FBI," Claire added. "This is wire fraud, interstate, international. This is federal." Maurice grinned. "Even better, longer sentences." Claire's phone rang. "Lily," she answered immediately. "Mom? Hey, sweetie, everything okay?" "Yeah, can we talk when you get home?" Something in Lily's voice made Claire's chest tighten. "Of course, I'll be there in an hour." "Okay? I love you." The words stopped Claire cold. Lily hadn't said that in months. "I love you too, baby." When she got home, Lily was waiting on the couch. She'd been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. "What happened?" Claire sat beside her, and this time Lily didn't pull away. "I've been thinking about everything you told me. About Dad. About what he did." Claire waited. "I was mad at you for lying. I'm still mad, but I get it now. Why you didn't tell me." Lily wiped her eyes. "He's a bad person, and you were trying to protect me from that. I should have told you sooner." "Yeah, you should have, but I also should have trusted that you had a good reason." Lily took a shaky breath. "I don't want to meet him. I don't want anything to do with him, and I want to help you make him pay for what he did." "Lily, I'm serious. Tell me what I can do." "I'm smart. I can help with research or—" "No." Claire took her daughter's hands. "Absolutely not. This could get dangerous. I won't risk you." "Mom, no. You being safe and happy is all that matters. That's why I'm doing this. Not for revenge. For you. So you can grow up knowing that bad people don't get to win, that justice exists." Lily hugged her then, hard and desperate. "I'm sorry I said those things. About you being bitter. You weren't completely wrong. Still, I'm sorry." They sat like that for a while, holding each other, and Claire felt something loosen in her chest. Not fixed, not healed, but better. Her daughter was back, and together, they were going to watch Michael Reeves fall. 18 months. That's how long it took to build the case that would destroy Michael Reeves. Claire stood in Maurice's apartment, their headquarters now, surrounded by the evidence of their obsession, filing cabinets full of documents, a corkboard covered with photos, timelines, connections drawn in red string like something from a crime show, bank statements highlighted in yellow, post-it notes everywhere. "This is it," Maurice said, spreading the latest batch of files from Thomas across the table. "This is what we need." Claire leaned over his shoulder. The documents showed $8 million being transferred from TechVision's investor accounts to a shell corporation in the Caymans. The transaction was dated 3 days ago, the same day Michael had announced the successful completion of the Asian expansion fundraising. He did it during the board meeting, Thomas had written in his encrypted email, authorized the transfer while everyone was congratulating him. "Bold as hell. We have the whole chain now," Maurice said, pulling out a folder thick with evidence. The original Langford theft, 8 million disappearing through shell companies, the fake death, the setup making me look guilty, then the money reappearing years later as seed funding for TechVision. And now this, the exact same pattern, same amount. different victims. It's not enough to suspect, Claire said. We need someone who'll listen, someone with power to act. Maurice pulled out his phone. I made some calls. Detective Sarah Chen. She worked the original investigation into my company's collapse. She never believed I was guilty, but couldn't prove it. I think she'll listen. You think? It's all we've got. Detective Sarah Chen was 42, sharp-eyed, with the tired look of someone who'd seen too much and believed too little. She met them at a diner in Koreatown, slid into the booth across from Claire and Maurice, and ordered coffee black. I remember you, she said to Maurice. Langford Financial. You claimed you were framed. I was framed. So you said. Couldn't prove it then. Can you prove it now? Maurice slid the folder across the table. Chen opened it, started reading. Her expression didn't change, but Claire saw her grip tighten on the pages. She read for 10 minutes straight, occasionally flipping back to cross-reference documents. Finally, she looked up. Michael Reeves, the tech CEO. The supposedly dead financial manager, Maurice corrected. You're telling me he faked his death, stole $8 million from you, framed you for it, and is now doing it again? That's exactly what I'm telling you. And you are. Chen turned to Claire. Claire Dawson. I was pregnant with Michael's child when he disappeared. He abandoned me. Let me believe he was dead for 14 years. Chen's expression softened slightly. That's rough, but that's not a crime. Fraud is. Identity theft is. Faking your death is. And stealing $16 million definitely is. How'd you get these documents? Chen tapped the folder. Claire and Maurice exchanged glances. Can't tell you that, Maurice said. Then I can't use them if they're obtained illegally. They're not illegal, Claire interrupted. They're copies of legitimate corporate records. We just can't reveal our source because it would put them in danger. A whistleblower, Chen said. Neither of them responded. Chen sat back, thinking, even if everything here is legitimate, building a case takes time, months, maybe years. Michael Reeves has resources, lawyers. He's planning to run, Claire said. There's a charity gala next week. Big event. All his investors will be there. We think he's going to take the money and disappear. Again. What makes you think that? Maurice pulled out another document. A property deed. He bought a villa in Dubai 2 months ago, under a shell company name. But we traced it back to him. Dubai has no extradition treaty with the US. Chen studied the deed. This is circumstantial. Everything's circumstantial until you look at the whole picture, Maurice said. Alone, each piece is nothing. Together, it's a pattern, a signature, and it's the same signature from 14 years ago. Chen closed the folder. I'll need to verify all of this. Talk to my captain, if we move on this and we're wrong. You're not wrong, Claire said. I know what this looks like. Broke woman with a grudge. Disgraced businessman desperate for vindication. But we're not crazy. We're not making this up. Michael Reeves is a thief and a fraud, and he's about to steal millions more and disappear. Chen looked at her for a long moment. You have a kid, right? The one he abandoned. Lily, she's 14. She know about this, about what you're doing. She knows, and she's okay with it. Claire thought about the last 18 months, the late nights, the obsession, the fear. Lily watching her mother become someone harder, colder, more focused. She understands why it matters, Claire said carefully. Chen nodded slowly. Okay, I'll look into it, but I need more time. We don't have time, Maurice insisted. The gala is in 6 days. If we don't act now, if we act now without proper authorization, without building a solid case, we lose everything. He walks, and you've given me, Chen hefted the folder, a roadmap to build that case, but I need to do it right. How long? Claire asked. 2 weeks? Maybe 3. He'll be gone by then. Maybe, or maybe he's not planning to run. Maybe you're wrong about the timeline. But Claire knew they weren't wrong. She could feel it. The same instinct that had kept her and Lily alive for 14 years. The sense of when danger was close. Michael was preparing to vanish, and they were running out of time. They left the diner with Chen's promise to investigate. It wasn't enough, but it was something. She won't move fast enough, Maurice said once they were outside. I know. So what do we do? Claire pulled out her phone, looked at the invitation she'd saved weeks ago. The gala. Technology for the future. A benefit for education. Black tie. $500 a plate. The elite of Los Angeles coming together to celebrate Michael's generosity while he robbed them blind. She'd gotten the invitation because the Golden Star was catering the event. Staff were invited to work it. Good tips. Prestigious assignment. "I'm working the gala," Claire said. "I'll be there, inside." So maybe we don't wait for Chen. Maybe we force Michael's hand ourselves. Maurice stared at her. "What are you planning?" "I don't know yet, but I'll think of something." That night, Claire lay in bed listening to Lily's steady breathing from across the room. Her daughter was asleep, peaceful, dreaming whatever dreams 14-year-olds had. Claire stared at the ceiling and thought about the gala, about Michael in his expensive tuxedo playing the philanthropist, Isabella on his arm, dripping in jewelry bought with stolen money, investors congratulating him, trusting him, having no idea he was about to destroy them. She thought about Detective Chen's caution, the proper way to do things, build a case, get authorization, move through official channels. But official channels hadn't helped her 14 years ago, hadn't helped Maurice. The system protected people like Michael, rich, connected, smart enough to hide their crimes behind corporate complexity. Maybe it was time to stop playing by rules that were designed to let people like him win. Claire's phone buzzed. A text from Maurice. Thought of something. "Risky. You free tomorrow?" She texted back, "Always." The next day, Maurice laid out his plan. It was insane, dangerous, probably illegal. It was perfect. "We get him to confess," Maurice said. "Not to the police, to his investors at the gala, in front of everyone." "How?" "We provoke him. Push his buttons. Make him angry enough to slip up. You said he didn't recognize you at the restaurant. You were invisible. Use that. Get close. Say the right things. And if he doesn't confess, if he just has security throw me out, then we've lost nothing. Chen's still investigating. We still have all our evidence. But if it works, if we get him to admit what he did in front of 500 witnesses..." "He's finished," Claire completed. "He's finished," Maurice agreed. Claire thought about it. The risk, the potential, the satisfaction of watching Michael's perfect facade crack in public. "I'll need to wear a wire, record everything. Chen won't authorize that. Then we don't tell Chen." Maurice smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." They spent the next 4 days preparing. Maurice got a recording device. Small, easily hidden. They practiced what Claire would say, how she'd approach Michael, what buttons to push. "He's arrogant," Maurice said. "That's his weakness. He thinks he's smarter than everyone. Untouchable. So touch him. Remind him you exist. Remind him he's not as smart as he thinks. What if he recognizes me? Even better. Let him see that the woman he tried to destroy is still standing, still fighting. It'll enrage him. Angry people make mistakes." The night before the gala, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay awake thinking about everything that could go wrong. Michael having her arrested, security cameras catching her, the wire malfunctioning, Chen finding out and shutting them down. But she also thought about everything that could go right. Michael in handcuffs, Isabella's perfect mask shattering, justice. Finally, after 18 months of fighting, Lily rolled over in bed, still asleep. Claire watched her daughter and whispered into the darkness, "Tomorrow, one way or another, it ends tomorrow." And she meant it. The Getty Museum looked like something out of a fairy tale. White travertine marble glowed in the evening light, string lights wrapped around columns. Crystal chandeliers hung from the outdoor pavilion where the gala was being held, tables draped in white linen, each centerpiece probably costing more than Claire's monthly rent. She stood in the service area, adjusting her bow tie, trying to keep her hands steady. The wire was taped to her ribs, the microphone hidden in her collar. Every breath felt like it might expose her. "You okay?" Jamie from the restaurant asked, passing by with a tray of champagne flutes. "Yeah, just nervous. Big event. You'll be fine. Just smile and stay invisible. That's what we're good at, right?" Invisible, the story of her life. But not tonight. Claire picked up her tray, bruschetta with truffle oil, and stepped into the main event space. 500 people, maybe more. Women in evening gowns that cost more than cars. Men in custom tuxedos. the smell of expensive perfume and old money. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And there, at the center of it all, holding court like royalty, Michael and Isabella Reeves. Isabella wore a red gown that probably came straight from a Paris runway, diamonds at her throat, ears, wrists, her blonde hair swept up in an elaborate style that required a professional. Michael looked distinguished in his tuxedo, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, that same easy smile that had fooled Claire 14 years ago. He held a glass of scotch and laughed at something a silver-haired man said. Claire's stomach churned. She forced herself to move through the crowd, offering bruschetta to guests who took it without seeing her, who kept talking as if she wasn't there. Invisible. She circled closer to Michael's group. He was talking about the Asian expansion, explaining how TechVision would revolutionize education technology in developing markets, how their investors were changing the world. Lies. All of it. The key is sustainable growth, Michael was saying. We're not just chasing profits, we're building something meaningful, something that will outlast all of us. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so disgusting. Claire waited, watched, looking for an opening. Isabella excused herself to greet another donor. Michael's conversation group shifted, people drifting away to network. For just a moment, he stood alone, checking his phone. Now, Claire approached with her tray. Bruschetta, sir. He didn't look up. No, thank you. They're really good, truffle oil, very expensive. Something in her tone made him glance at her. Brief eye contact. No recognition. I'm fine, he said, already looking away. Of course you are. You're always fine, aren't you, Michael? He froze, looked at her again, actually seeing her this time. Claire watched the moment of recognition, saw his eyes widen slightly, saw him process the face that was older, harder, but still familiar. Claire. He said it so quietly she almost didn't hear. Surprise. His face cycled through emotions, shock, confusion, anger. He glanced around quickly, checking if anyone was listening. Everyone nearby was engaged in their own conversations. What are you doing here? Working. Same thing I've been doing for 14 years while you played CEO. She kept her voice low, calm, professional. Bruschetta, you need to leave now. Why? I'm just doing my job, serving food to rich people who think they're changing the world by eating expensive appetizers. Michael's jaw clenched. I don't know what you think you're doing. I'm not thinking anything. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just like you knew exactly what you were doing 14 years ago when you faked your death and left me pregnant. Keep your voice down. I'm whispering, Michael, just like you taught me. Keep the ugly truth quiet. Don't make a scene. Protect the image. He grabbed her elbow, started steering her toward a less crowded corner. We need to talk. Privately. Perfect. He led her to a hallway near the service entrance, checked to make sure no one followed, then turned on her, and for the first time, she saw real anger in his eyes. How dare you come here? How dare you? How dare I? How dare you? You let me think you were dead. You let me struggle for 14 years. You have a daughter. I don't have anything, Michael hissed. That child was a mistake. You were a mistake. An inconvenience I dealt with. The words should have hurt. But Claire had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. She'd heard worse in the emails, in the evidence they'd collected. A mistake you dealt with by destroying my life. Your life was already nothing. I just ensured it stayed that way. Why, the money wasn't enough. You had to make sure I suffered too. You were a loose end. Loose ends are problems. I eliminate problems. Claire's hand instinctively went to her collar, making sure the wire was working. Getting this? Recording this? You eliminated me by making sure I'd be too poor, too broken to ever come looking for you. And it worked. For 14 years, it worked perfectly. You disappeared into poverty exactly like I planned. Michael smiled. And it was the cruelest thing Claire had ever seen. Look at you. A waitress, still struggling, still nobody, while I built an empire. An empire made of stolen money, borrowed money, from people too stupid to notice. Maurice noticed. Michael's expression darkened. Maurice was weak, trusting. He handed me everything I needed to destroy him. And Isabella, your wife, she just handed you her husband. Isabella understood ambition, understood that Maurice's small-time operation was nothing compared to what we could build together. He checked his watch. Which we have built, and in 3 days, we'll be in Dubai, living like royalty, while these idiots, he gestured toward the gala, figure out their money is gone. There it was, the confession, the plan, all of it. Claire's heart pounded. You're running again. I'm relocating. There's a difference. You're stealing $8 million and running. I'm taking what I earned and moving somewhere more, appreciative of my talents. You're a thief. I'm an entrepreneur, the difference is marketing. Michael stepped closer. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave tonight, and you're going to forget you ever saw me. Because if you don't, I will destroy what's left of your pathetic life. I'll make sure you never work again. I'll make sure your daughter... Don't you dare talk about Lily. Your daughter, Michael continued, grows up knowing her mother is crazy, delusional, making up stories about me. I have lawyers, Claire, resources, connections. You have nothing. I have the truth. Truth is whatever people believe. And who's going to believe you? A broke waitress with a grudge versus a respected CEO. He laughed. You already lost this fight 14 years ago. Stop embarrassing yourself. Movement behind Michael. Isabella appeared in the hallway, eyes narrowing when she saw Claire. Michael, who is this? Nobody. Just a server who got lost. I'm not lost, Claire said. I'm exactly where I need to be. Isabella's eyes flicked between them. You know each other. Ancient history, Michael said. I was pregnant with his child when he faked his death and stole $8 million from your ex-husband, Claire said pleasantly. So yes, we know each other. Isabella went pale. Michael, she's lying. Clearly unstable. I'll call security. I'm not lying. And I have proof. Emails, financial records, everything showing what you did then and what you're doing now. Michael's face flushed red. You have nothing. You're bluffing. Am I? Thomas Wu sends his regards. By the way, he's been very helpful these past few months. She watched the name register, saw Michael's eyes widen. Thomas, your accountant, the one you humiliated, the one who's been copying your financial records and sending them to me, the one who documented every single fraudulent transfer you've made. You're lying. $8 million transferred to Grand Cayman Ventures 3 days ago. Authorization code TM4457. Same code structure you used for the Langford theft. You're not even creative about it. Isabella grabbed Michael's arm. She knows. Oh God, she knows. Shut up, Michael snapped. We need to leave, now, tonight. I said shut up. The mask was cracking, the smooth CEO disappearing, replaced by the angry, desperate man underneath. You think you can threaten me? Michael stepped toward Claire. You think you can waltz in here and... I think I can stand here and watch you destroy yourself, Claire said calmly, which you're doing beautifully. I will end you. I will take everything. You already took everything, 14 years ago. There's nothing left to take, Claire smiled, except your freedom. That I'm definitely taking. You can't prove anything. I can prove all of it, and so can Detective Sarah Chen from the LAPD, who's currently reviewing everything I gave her, and so can Maurice Langford, who's been waiting 8 years to watch you pay for what you did to him. Michael's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Claire thought he might actually hit her. Then Maurice's voice came from behind them. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Too many witnesses. Maurice stood in the hallway with Detective Chen and 4 uniformed officers. Chen held up her badge. Michael Reeves, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. Isabella Reeves, you're under arrest as an accomplice. The color drained from Michael's face. You can't, this is over, Claire said quietly. Finally. She watched as officers moved forward, handcuffs glinting in the light, watched Michael's perfect world crumble, watched justice happen, and for the first time in 14 years, Claire Dawson felt free. The trial lasted 3 months and dominated headlines across Los Angeles. Tech CEO arrested for massive fraud scheme. The double life of Michael Reeves, from death to deception, a 14-year con. Claire watched from the gallery as the prosecution built their case. Brick by methodical brick. Thomas Wu testified first. walking the jury through the financial records with quiet precision. He showed them the transfers, the shell corporations, the offshore accounts. His voice never wavered, even when Michael's lawyers tried to paint him as a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. "I'm not seeking revenge," Thomas said calmly. "I'm seeking justice. There's a difference." Maurice took the stand next. 8 years of grief and anger compressed into 3 hours of testimony. He explained how Michael had worked for him, earned his trust, gained access to everything, how the money had disappeared, how he'd been framed, destroyed, left with nothing. "Did you embezzle from your own company, Mr. Langford?" the prosecutor asked. "No. Michael Reeves stole from my company and made it look like I did it." "How do you know this?" "Because I spent 8 years investigating. Because the same pattern that destroyed me is the same pattern he used on his current investors. Same amounts, same methods, same arrogance." Michael's lawyers attacked, called Maurice obsessed, desperate, bitter, but the financial records backed up every word he said. Then it was Claire's turn. She'd been dreading this moment for weeks, telling her story in front of strangers, having Michael's lawyers dissect her life, question her motives. But when the prosecutor called her name, she stood and walked to the witness stand with her head high. She wore a simple blue dress, no makeup beyond what was necessary. Lily sat in the front row, and that's where Claire kept her eyes, on her daughter, who nodded encouragement. "Ms. Dawson, how did you know Michael Reeves?" "We worked together at Langford Financial. He was my supervisor. We dated for 6 months. I got pregnant. 2 months later he died. Or I thought he died." "When did you learn he was alive?" 18 months ago. I was working as a waitress at the Golden Star. He made a reservation. I served him dinner. What did you feel when you saw him?" Claire took a breath. Shock, disbelief, then rage, because he was alive, rich, happy, while I'd spent 14 years struggling to raise our daughter alone. "Did Mr. Reeves recognize you?" "No. I was invisible to him. Just another server." The prosecutor walked her through the investigation, meeting Maurice, finding Thomas, building the case piece by piece. The late nights, the documents, the months of work. "Why did you do this, Ms. Dawson? Why not just report him to the police immediately?" "Because I had no proof. I was nobody. He was a CEO. Who would believe me? I needed evidence. I needed to build a case so strong that his money and lawyers couldn't make it disappear." Michael's lawyer stood for cross-examination. He was expensive, sharp, exactly what you'd expect. "Miss Dawson, isn't it true you were motivated by revenge?" "I was motivated by justice. Justice or revenge, they look similar when you're the one pursuing them, don't they?" "No. Revenge is hot and quick. Justice takes 18 months of patient work. You wore a wire to the gala. That's not legal without authorization. I wore a wire to protect myself, and everything it recorded was Michael confessing to his crimes. Or you provoked him, pushed him to say things out of context." "Context," Claire leaned forward. "The context is he faked his death 14 years ago to abandon me while pregnant. The context is he stole $8 million from Maurice Langford. The context is he was about to steal $8 million more and flee the country. What additional context do you need?" The lawyer tried different angles, painted her as bitter, scorned, unreliable, but every attack bounced off the evidence. The emails, the financial records, the confession on tape. When cross-examination ended, Claire stepped down and returned to her seat next to Lily. "You were amazing, Mom," Lily whispered. Claire squeezed her hand. "Almost over, baby." But there was one more witness. One Claire had been both dreading and anticipating. The prosecution called Lily Dawson to the stand. Claire's heart stopped. "No, she's a minor. They can't—" "She volunteered," the prosecutor had told Claire weeks ago. "She wants to testify, and her testimony about growing up without a father because of Michael's choices. It's powerful." Now Lily walked to the stand in her school uniform, looking so young and so brave it made Claire's chest ache. "Lily, how old are you? 14? Do you know your father?" "No, I've never met him. He left before I was born." "What did your mother tell you about him?" "That he died in a car accident. That he loved me but never got to meet me." "How did you feel when you learned the truth?" Lily's voice cracked slightly. Betrayed, not just by him, but by the lie. I spent my whole life thinking my dad was a hero who died young. Finding out he chose to leave, chose to let my mom struggle alone. It hurt. Do you blame your mother for lying to you? I did, for a while. But I understand now. She was trying to protect me from knowing I wasn't wanted. The courtroom was silent. Lily, what has life been like for you and your mother? Hard? Mom worked 3 jobs when I was little. She still works too. We've never had much money. We share a 1-bedroom apartment, but Mom always made sure I had what I needed. School supplies, clothes, food. She went without so I wouldn't have to. And during all this time, where was your father? Lily looked directly at Michael for the first time. Building his empire with stolen money, living in Beverly Hills, pretending we didn't exist. Michael's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The jury had seen Lily's pain, heard her story. The defense called their witnesses, character references who swore Michael was brilliant, generous, trustworthy, financial experts who tried to make the transfers sound legitimate. Isabella testified that she'd known nothing about the fraud, that Michael had kept her in the dark. I'm a victim too, Isabella said, dabbing at tears that looked rehearsed. But the prosecution tore her story apart, showed emails where she'd discussed the plan, showed her benefiting from the divorce settlement funded by stolen money, showed her living in luxury while Maurice and Claire suffered. Closing arguments lasted a day. The prosecution summarized the evidence methodically. The defense argued reasonable doubt, claimed the witnesses were biased, the evidence circumstantial. The jury deliberated for 4 days. Claire barely slept. She went to work, came home, stared at the walls. Lily stayed close, both of them afraid to hope too much. On the 4th day, Claire's phone rang. Detective Chen, they have a verdict. Get to the courthouse. Claire and Lily arrived to find the courtroom packed. Media everywhere. Maurice sat in his usual spot, looking older but somehow lighter than he had in months. All rise. The judge entered. The jury filed in. None of them looked at Michael, which Claire had read somewhere was a good sign. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have. Your Honor. Claire reached for Lily's hand, held it tight. On the charge of wire fraud in the 1st degree, how do you find the defendant? Guilty! The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. On the charge of money laundering. Guilty. On the charge of identity theft. Guilty. Each guilty verdict landed like a hammer blow. Claire watched Michael's face drain of color, watched his lawyers scramble to request immediate appeal, watched justice happen in real time. Isabella's verdict came next. Guilty on conspiracy, guilty on accessory to fraud, guilty on obstruction of justice. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Maurice gave a brief statement about vindication and justice. Claire declined to comment, just held Lily close and pushed through the crowd to the parking lot where her used Honda waited. We won, Lily said once they were in the car. We won, Claire confirmed. What happens now? Sentencing, then they go to prison, then we figure out how to live with what we've won. 2 weeks later, they returned for sentencing. The judge was thorough, recounting each crime, each victim, each life destroyed by Michael's greed. Mr. Reeves, you orchestrated a complex fraud spanning 14 years. You stole from your employer, framed an innocent man, abandoned your pregnant girlfriend, and attempted to defraud investors of millions more. You showed no remorse, no recognition of the harm you caused. This court sentences you to 22 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for the first 15 years. Michael's face went ashen. Mrs. Reeves, you were complicit in every aspect of these crimes. You benefited knowingly from stolen funds and helped plan the destruction of your former husband. This court sentences you to 22 years in federal prison. Isabella sobbed. Michael stared straight ahead, blank-faced. All their assets were ordered seized. The Beverly Hills house, the cars, the offshore accounts. Every penny would go toward restitution for victims. Maurice would get back some of what he'd lost. Not everything, but enough to start over. Claire would receive a settlement too. Not millions, but enough that she wouldn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. Enough that Lily could go to college without drowning in debt. Outside, Maurice hugged Claire for the first time. "Thank you," he said, "for believing me when no one else did. Thank you for teaching me how to fight back." They stood together watching the courthouse, watching justice being served. "What will you do now?" Maurice asked. "Live," Claire said simply. "Just live." That night, Claire and Lily sat on their apartment balcony, watching the sunset over Los Angeles. The city stretched out below them, millions of lights beginning to glow as darkness fell. "Mom." "Yeah, baby. Did you forgive him, Dad?" Claire thought about it, really thought. "No," she said finally. "I don't need to forgive him. I just need to live my life, and I'm finally free to do that." She pulled out the only photo she'd kept of Michael from 14 years ago. Young, smiling, the man she'd thought she loved. She tore it in half, then quarters, then smaller pieces. Let the wind take them. The past was dead. Michael was in prison, and Claire Dawson was finally free. The Euclid campus buzzed with end-of-semester energy. Students sprawled on lawns. Groups debated theory outside lecture halls. The coffee cart doing brisk business. Lily Dawson, 19 and sophomore year, reviewed case files for criminal law, dark hair in a ponytail, reading glasses on, half-empty latte cooling beside her notebook. Still at it. Her study partner Marcus dropped into the chair across from her. 6 hours of reviewing. Finals are in 3 days, which is why normal people take breaks. Lily smiled. "I'll rest after finals. You said that last semester." Marcus studied her. "You're going to burn out. Even future Supreme Court justices need sleep." "I'm not going to be a Supreme Court justice." "Right. Just a prosecutor who puts away white-collar criminals, much less ambitious." Lily closed her notebook. "My mom's picking me up soon. Dinner. The famous Claire Dawson. I still can't believe I haven't met her. She's been busy with the consulting firm, the one she co-owns with Maurice. Langford Dawson Consulting. They advise companies on fraud prevention. Turns out people pay a lot to learn how not to get robbed by employees. Ironic, considering how your mom learned those skills. Life's funny that way." Her phone buzzed. "Claire, outside the library. Take your time." Lily gathered her things and headed out. Claire's sensible Toyota was parked in the visitor lot. At 41, her mother looked younger than 5 years ago. The lines around her eyes had softened. Gray hair professionally covered, tailored blazer and slacks. Consulting, not food service. "Hey, Mom." Claire looked up and smiled. The real kind. "Hey, baby. How were exams?" "Haven't taken them yet. Still panic studying." "You'll do great. You always do." They drove to a restaurant in Westwood. Nice, but nothing fancy. The kind where you didn't check prices first, 5 years ago. Unthinkable. Now just Tuesday. Over pasta, they caught up. Lily talked about classes, her DA's office internship application. Claire talked about Maurice's new client, a tech startup wanting financial audits. They read about the Michael Reeves case and didn't want to be the next cautionary tale, Claire said with dry humor. So Dad's legacy lives on, just not how he planned. They didn't talk about Michael much anymore. He was in federal prison in Colorado, year 5 of 22. They'd each received one letter, awkward, self-pitying, both thrown away unopened. "Maurice asked about you," Claire said. "Wanted to know about law school. I'm only a sophomore, Mom." "I know. He's just excited. Says you're going to be brilliant. He would know. He's been dealing with lawyers for a decade." Claire laughed. Easy, natural, so different from the brittle, exhausted laugh Lily remembered from childhood. "He also wanted you at the benefit next month. The Fraud Prevention Foundation fundraiser, scholarships for forensic accounting students. The foundation you and Maurice started. The one we chair." Claire twirled pasta. "It's black tie. You could bring a date." "Mom." "What? You're 19? You're allowed to date. I'm also allowed to focus on studies. You can do both. I did." "Yeah, and look how that turned out." The words came out sharper than intended. Claire flinched slightly. "Sorry," Lily said quickly. "I didn't mean—" "It's okay. You're not wrong." Claire set down her fork. "Dating your boss while working through college is generally bad, especially when he's a sociopath." "Mom, I'm kidding mostly." Claire smiled, sat around the edges. I just want you happy, Lily. I want you to have the life I didn't get, the one I fought for you to have. I know, and I am happy. I'm at UCLA because you made it possible. Everything I am is because you fought for it." Claire squeezed Lily's hand. "Everything you are is because you're brilliant and hardworking. I just made sure you had the chance." They finished dinner, talking about lighter things. When the check came, Claire paid without hesitation. No calculating tips, no anxious mental math. 5 years had changed so much. Walking back to the car, Lily asked, "Mom, do you ever regret it? The investigation, the trial? Do you wish you'd walked away when you saw Dad at the restaurant?" Claire was quiet. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had," she admitted. "If I'd kept my head down, gone home, maybe I'd have been happier not knowing. But then I think about Maurice, still broken, about the investors Michael would have stolen from, about you, growing up believing your father was a hero instead of a criminal." Claire stopped, turned to Lily. "I don't regret it, not for a second. Was it hard? God, yes. Did it cost me? Absolutely. But some things are worth the cost. Like justice. And like teaching my daughter that bad people don't win just because they're rich and powerful. That truth matters. That fighting back is worth it." Lily hugged her tight. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, baby." They drove back in comfortable silence. At the dorm, Claire said, "Think about the fundraiser. You don't have to bring a date, but you should see what we've built from all that pain." "I'll think about it." Inside, Lily's roommate Jessica was on her bed scrolling. "How's your mom?" "Good. Really good. Still dating the gym guy. David?" "Yeah, casual but steady. He seems nice." "Think it's serious?" Lily shrugged. "I think Mom's learned to be careful, but she seems happy." She settled at her desk to study, but found herself thinking about her mother's question. Did she regret any of it? The investigation had consumed 18 months, strained their relationship, put them at risk, forced Lily to grow up fast, but it had also taught her what real strength looked like, what persistence meant, what fighting for what's right actually cost. Those lessons had shaped her. 19, pre-law, perfect grades, fire in her belly to make sure people like her father faced consequences. Her phone buzzed. "Claire," Maurice said, "the Diaz office loved your application. Interview next week? Proud of you." Lily smiled and texted back, "Thanks, Mom. For everything. Always. Baby. Always." Lily opened her criminal law textbook to white-collar crime. The case studies included the Michael Reeves case, used now in law schools as a textbook example, her father's legacy, a cautionary tale, her mother's legacy, a consulting firm preventing fraud, a foundation educating people, and a daughter who'd spent her career making sure people like him went to prison. Did she regret it? No, not even a little. Some fights were worth every sacrifice, and this one had been won. The rooftop terrace of Claire's new apartment offered a view of downtown Los Angeles that still took her breath away. 41st floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen with appliances that actually worked. 2 bedrooms, one for her, one for Lily when she visited, a world away from Echo Park. Claire stood at the railing watching the sunset over the city, a glass of wine in her hand. Behind her, the sounds of the small dinner party she was hosting drifted through the open door. Maurice's laughter, David's voice telling a story, the clink of glasses, 5 years since the trial, 5 years of rebuilding. There you are. David stepped onto the terrace, carrying his own glass. Hiding from your own party. Just thinking. Dangerous hobby. He joined her at the railing. "What about?" Claire gestured at the city spread below them. "About how different everything is now. How different I am." David studied her profile. They'd been dating for 8 months. Met at the gym where Claire had started working out after the trial. Part of her new life resolution. He was a civil engineer. Divorced, no kids, patient, kind. Everything Michael hadn't been. "Different how?" he asked. "I used to serve food to people in apartments like this. Now I live in one. I used to count pennies for groceries. Now I don't check my bank account before buying wine. It feels surreal. Unearned." David turned to face her fully. "Claire, you built a successful consulting firm from scratch. You helped create a foundation that's educated thousands of people about fraud prevention. You raised an incredible daughter while working multiple jobs. How is any of that unearned? I know. Logically, I know. But there's this voice in my head that still feels like I'm one bad month away from being broke again. Like this could all disappear. That's trauma, not reality. David touched her arm gently. You're allowed to enjoy what you've built. You're allowed to be happy. Before Claire could respond, Maurice appeared in the doorway. Am I interrupting? Never, Claire said, grateful for the distraction. Just admiring the view. Maurice joined them, and the three stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Maurice looked good too, healthier than he had in years. The bitterness that had defined him for so long had faded, replaced by something that looked like contentment. Remember when we met? Maurice said suddenly. In my shitty apartment in Koreatown, you showed up at my door like some kind of avenging angel with nothing but photos and a crazy theory. It wasn't a theory, it was the truth. Yeah, but I'd spent 8 years trying to convince people of that truth and failing. Then you waltz in, and within 18 months we'd done what I couldn't do in nearly a decade. Maurice raised his glass. To unlikely partnerships. Claire clinked her glass against his. To second chances. And to not letting bastards win, David added, making them both laugh. They went back inside where the party continued. Small group. Just people Claire trusted completely. Maurice and his girlfriend Elena, David, Thomas Wu, who'd left accounting to become a forensic auditor, and now worked with their foundation. Detective Sarah Chen, who'd become an unexpected friend after the trial. Speech, Thomas called out, when he saw Claire return. Come on, this is your night. You have to say something. It's not my night, it's just dinner. It's the 5-year anniversary of the verdict, Maurice corrected. That deserves acknowledgement. Claire reluctantly stood, glass in hand. I'm not good at speeches. Bullshit, Chen interrupted. I've seen you present to boardrooms. You're excellent at speeches. Fine, okay? Claire took a breath. 5 years ago today, Michael Reeves and Isabella Langford were convicted of fraud, money laundering, and a dozen other crimes. It was the end of an 18-month investigation that nearly destroyed me multiple times. She paused, looking at each person in the room. I couldn't have done it without the people in this room. Maurice, who taught me how to investigate and never gave up on finding the truth. Thomas, who risked everything to help us. Chen, who believed us when she had every reason not to. And all of you who supported me through the darkest time of my life. To justice, Maurice said, raising his glass. To justice, everyone echoed. They drank, and Claire felt that familiar mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served, but it hadn't erased the 14 years she'd lost, hadn't given her back her 20s, her education, the life she'd planned before Michael destroyed it, but it had given her something else. Proof that fighting back mattered, that the truth could win. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lily. Just finished my last final. Pretty sure I aced it. Love you. Claire smiled and texted back. Proud of you, baby. Always. The party wound down around 10. Maurice and Elena left first, then Thomas and Chen. David helped Claire clean up, loading the dishwasher while she put away leftover food. That was nice, he said. Your people are good people. They are. Survived hell together. That bonds you. David dried his hands and turned to face her. Claire, I need to ask you something. Something in his tone made her look up. Do you think you'll ever really let that go? The Michael thing? Because sometimes when you talk about it, you still sound angry, and I get it. You have every right to be angry. But I worry it's still consuming you. Claire set down the container she was holding. It's not consuming me, but it's part of me. It's shaped who I am. I can't just forget it happened. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking if you can move forward, really forward, or if part of you will always be the woman fighting that battle. It was a fair question, one Claire had asked herself many times. I'm not fighting anymore, she said carefully. The battle's over. We won, but the experience changed me fundamentally, made me harder in some ways, stronger in others. And yes, I'm still angry sometimes when I think about what he did, but that anger doesn't control me anymore. It just exists, part of my history, and us. Can there be an us with all that history? Claire walked over to him, took his hands. David, I like you. A lot. You're kind and patient and you make me laugh. But I need you to understand something. I'm never going to be the carefree woman who didn't go through what I went through. I'm never going to be able to completely trust easily or let my guard down without effort. That's not trauma talking, that's reality. I know. And I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm just asking if there's room in your life for something that isn't about the fight. For something simple and good. There is, Claire said, and meant it. There absolutely is. But you need to be patient with me while I learn how to do that. David smiled and kissed her forehead. I can do patient. I'm an engineer. We're good at long-term projects. After he left, Claire stood alone in her apartment, looking at the detritus of the dinner party, glasses still on the coffee table, someone's sweater draped over a chair, evidence of connection, of friendship, of life being lived. She walked back to the terrace and looked out at the city one more time. Somewhere out there was the Echo Park apartment where she and Lily had survived for so many years. The Golden Star where she'd seen Michael's name and everything had changed. Maurice's old Koreatown apartment where they'd planned their investigation. The courthouse where justice had finally been served. All of it part of her story. All of it shaping who she'd become. Her phone rang. Lily. Hey baby. Thought you'd be celebrating with friends. I am. We're at a bar near campus. But I wanted to call. It's the 5-year anniversary, right, of the verdict. It is. I've been thinking about it all day. About everything that happened. About how different our lives are now. Me too. Mom, I need to tell you something. I've been keeping it from you because I wasn't sure how you'd react. Claire's stomach tightened. What is it? I got a letter from Dad from prison. The world tilted slightly. When? 3 months ago. And you didn't tell me. I didn't open it at first, but then I did, last week, and I read it. Claire sat down hard on one of the terrace chairs. What did it say? He apologized, sort of. Said he'd had a lot of time to think about his choices. Said he understood why I wanted nothing to do with him. And then, Lily's voice caught. He asked if I'd visit him. Said he wanted to know who I'd become. And I wrote back. Told him no. Told him he gave up the right to know me when he abandoned us. That I was proud to be your daughter, but I wanted nothing to do with him. Lily paused. Was that wrong? Should I have given him a chance? Baby, that was your choice to make. No one else's. And whatever you decided would have been right. I don't feel guilty. I thought I would. But I don't. He's a stranger to me. Less than a stranger. He's the man who tried to destroy my mother. Why would I want to know him? You wouldn't. And you shouldn't feel obligated to. I just wanted you to know. In case he tries to contact you too. Thank you for telling me. I love you, Mom. I love you too. Now go celebrate your last final. You earned it. After they hung up, Claire sat in the gathering darkness, processing. Michael reaching out after 5 years of silence, Lily choosing Claire over him without hesitation. It should have felt like a victory, and it did, in a way. But it also felt sad, not for Michael. He'd earned his isolation. But for Lily, who'd never know what having a father felt like, for the family they could have been if Michael had been a different person. But he wasn't a different person. He was exactly who he'd always been. Selfish, cruel, destructive, and Lily was better off without him. Claire pulled out her phone and looked at her photos. Recent ones. Lily at UCLA, laughing with friends, Maurice and Elena at dinner, David at the beach, the team at Langford Dawson celebrating a successful client presentation, a life built from ashes. She thought about David's question. Could she move forward? Really forward? Looking at these photos? At evidence of happiness and connection and success? Claire realized she already had. The fight was over. She'd won. And now, finally, incredibly, she got to live.